to go to nursing school. Then he got a job in Livingston, New Jersey in 1987, and he also got married this year and soon had 2 daughters. The next year, on June 11th, 1988, Charles Cullen committed his first murder. On this day, Judge John Yengo was admitted to the hospital after he had an allergic reaction to a medication. Aww. Cullen gave the judge a lethal dose of medication intravenously, so through his...
I'm sorry. You said a lethal dose.
Did I?
Yes.
I didn't even notice.
I'm sorry. A lethal dose.
A lethal dose of medication intravenously, so through his IV.
Oh, okay.
Cullen would later admit to killing 11 patients total at this hospital, St. Barnabas, including an AIDS patient. He kills everyone the same way. He gives them too much medication through their IV.
Why?
We'll get into more of that. In 1992, so this is, I don't know if you remember my last medical case, or the stolen identity where the guy, but they go from hospital to hospital. This is kind of the same, where they just keep going to...
He just kind of goes under the radar and just can move on and on and on. Okay.
So in 1992, when hospital authorities began to investigate some of these mysterious deaths, Cullen just quit his job and started working at Warren Hospital in Phillipsburg, New Jersey. Just moved along.
Nice. Nice.
At this hospital, he killed 3 elderly women, again, by overdosing them with lethal amounts of medication through IVs. And it was always almost heart medication. He would give them way too much heart medication. The 3rd elderly woman actually told her family that a, quote, sneaky male nurse was coming into her room and injecting her with something, but they dismissed it just thinking she was delusional.
Yeah, maybe senile or something.
Yeah.
That's sad.
The following year, Cullen's wife filed for divorce, and it was, I'll get into it more, but it was a super contentious, crazy, bad divorce. In court documents, his wife claimed that Cullen had tortured and abused the family's Yorkies, their dogs, even zipping one of them into a bowling bag at times. When he wanted the dog to shut up, he would zip them into bowling bags. She said that he abused her at least twice. She said that Cullen would pour lighter fluid into people's drinks when they were out, when he got the chance.
Ew.
And that he thought it was hilarious to make prank calls to funeral homes. So he's all kinds of fucked up.
Wow, okay. Yeah.
Through all of this, Cullen lost custody of his 2 daughters when he moved into an apartment, still in Phillipsburg. He said that he wanted to, or later, he claims that it was around this time he wanted to quit nursing, but he couldn't because he had to make alimony and child support payments. He also claims he attempted suicide a few more times around this time. But this is all except he later said. The following year, he quit his job and transferred to Hunter Medical Center in Raritan, New Jersey, where he worked in the ICU cardiac unit.
Not the heart place.
I know. He claims he didn't kill anyone during his first 2 years there, but he did admit to killing 5 during his 3rd year.
Oh, okay. So, that's fine.
But by the time of his arrest... years later, hospital records had already been destroyed because they only keep them for this was before everything's on a computer. So they couldn't link him to any deaths besides the ones he admitted. At the very end, I'll talk about why we don't know how many he killed. But I'm going to save it for the end. Woo! By 1998, Cullen moved to Allentown, Pennsylvania, where he got a job at a rehab clinic. It was here that he was seen entering a patient's room carrying a bunch of syringes, but was stopped before he could do anything. And he was actually accused here at giving patients meds at unauthorized times, but all they did was fire him. He didn't contact authorities, didn't do anything. So he moved to Elston, Pennsylvania, where...
If you didn't know his, background, you might be like, okay, you can't do that, you're out. And just not think about it.
Right, but he's, giving them random medication that they're not prescribed at random times.
Yeah, that is alarming.
But they just fire him, which is, at least was very common in the medical field. The hospitals are so scared to get sued that they just fire you and let you quietly go work somewhere else.
Oh, that's creepy.
Which, Dr. Death is another podcast where the same thing kind of happens.
I haven't listened to it yet because I'm so afraid to listen to it.
It is very graphic.
Yeah, that's why I've heard it's
graphic. If you can't handle the medical stuff, you won't. Christy couldn't handle it.
I'll give it a try.
That doesn't bother me, but...
Actually, after you tell your story, too, I want to talk about... It's not a podcast, but a crime thing I just watched that I can't stop thinking about.
Nobody cares.
It's probably true, but...
I'm just kidding.
I almost said no one pays to listen to you talk. They do.
Yes, they do. So, like I said, he moved to Elston, Pennsylvania, where he murdered another patient by overdose on medicine, but no evidence pointed to him. So, some of these patients were just dying. It was just chalked up to them being old, or, they couldn't prove that anyone did anything. It is important to note, Well, okay, so this is part of the reason he got away with it. In the 1990s, there was a huge nurse shortage.
Was there? Mm-hmm. Oh, I didn't know that.
And there was no... We weren't using computers for everything.
Yeah, sure.
And there was no reporting system to track suspicious behavior or issues. But there is now. But, like, back then, like, nothing was tracked or reported. So he had no issue getting job after job.
I feel like people think, particularly people of older generations, I might be wrong, but I feel like they think that people are worse now. I'm like, no, I think that it's more trackable now.
I saw the best thing.
I don't think people are worse.
No, I don't either. I think humans have always been kind of the same.
Now it's just easier to find out.
Yeah. I saw the best thing today, actually, and I sent it, and it's like stick figures, but it's someone being like, millennials are so entitled and they're this and they're that and they want to work. They don't want to work, but they want everything handed. And then the second one is like a younger person like thinking. And then the third box is him being like, so you're saying your generation weren't great parents? And then they show the lady like trying to fight him and having to be like dragged away. Like I've heard older people like talking shit on millennials and I've said so. I'm like, you guys raised us.
Yeah.
And they don't fucking want to hear that. But I'm like,
but who else taught her?
But as soon as you say that, they're like, it's the world's fault. It's not my fault. It's the world. It's the world today.
Yeah.
Who created the, like...
It also drives me crazy, too, because I see people who are bitching about millennials and people who aren't bitching about millennials, both, I feel like both just think the term millennials is teenagers.
Yeah.
And I'm like, one, teenagers are always going to look like they don't want to work and so on and so forth because they're teenagers. But two, I always correct them whether they were saying something nice or not. Like, look at this sweet millennial. I'm like, that's not a millennial. Millennials are in their late 20s and early to mid 30s.
Yeah. But that's the other thing is people act like millennials. Well, yeah, first of all, they're wrong about who millennials are. And second, your parents said the same fucking thing about you, that you were lazy and it's an age thing.
We'll say, I'm sure the same thing will happen with, Gen Z or Gen X? The one before us is either Gen Z or Gen X, and the one below us is either Gen Z or Gen X, whatever. The one before us, below us...
Every group of adults thinks that the children don't blah, blah, blah. You aren't fucking original to tell us that we don't want to work. Well, no, people say, like, my sister is 16. Yeah. She's not a millennial, but people, like... I just hate
people
everyone.
Are like, you millennials. She's like,
people.
I'm not a millennial.
Where was I? Oh, in 1999, Cullen got a job in a burn unit at a hospital in Allentown, Pennsylvania, where he killed at least one and tried to kill another.
Oh my God.
Later the same year, he quit and got a job at St. Luke's in Bethlehem, Pennsylvania. He murdered at least 5 patients here. And we know all these the numbers are all things he'll later admit to, which I'll talk about.
I wonder if he kept moving to be like, well, I don't want to be on the radar here, so I'm going to go to a new
That's
place.
part of it, yeah. In January 2000, he tried to commit suicide again.
Aww.
He lit a charcoal grill in his bathtub, thinking that the carbon monoxide would kill him, but neighbors smelled smoke and called 911. He was taken to a psych facility but sent home the next day.
He obviously has issues.
Yes. No one had any suspicions about Cullen until a coworker found empty vials of medication in the trash. So the medicine inside was gone, but they found all these vials. So the medicine was either used or stolen. They weren't medicines that were valuable outside the hospital, and they weren't drugs that people use recreational. So the theft was super suspicious because it wasn't like pain. It was like heart medication.
You're like, there's no reason someone would need this. Yeah. Like, I get someone stealing Vicodin or like morphine.
You can't sell this on the street and it doesn't get you high or like do anything good for you.
So why would you want it? Yeah.
An investigation into the stolen meds led to Cullen, but like normally, they just fired him and escorted him out of the building.
Nice.
They don't do any more than that. They didn't report to authorities or anything.
I think you'd report the theft at least.
Nope,
like,
nothing.
He stole a bunch of medicine. It's weird.
Because there's always a chance that the hospital could be liable and get sued.
They're like, well, why didn't you have your medicine locked
Exactly.
up? Yeah,
So
I get that, I guess. But,
that's why... But it doesn't mean you're right.
Yeah.
They should have called. But there's this fear. In every medical case I look into, hospitals don't do anything because they're so scared they'll get sued. They just literally quietly let the guy slip out the back door and be someone else's problem.
That's hard because I get it, but it's also against my ethics.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Shortly after, 7 nurses at St. Luke's who had worked with Cullen went to speak with the county district attorney and actually told authorities that they suspected Cullen was using the stolen and unaccounted for medicine to kill and harm patients. They told authorities that between January and June of 2002, Cullen had worked only 20% of the total hours of his unit, but alone accounted for 2/3 of patient deaths.
Whoa.
And this is just what they can keep track of. But the investigators never looked into his past or dug deep into him, so they didn't pursue him. There was no, active case. By September 2002, Cullen got a job at another clinic, Somerset Medical Center in Somerset, New Jersey, working in the critical care unit. By June the following year, he had murdered 8 more patients in the same way and attempted to kill a 9th. Soon after the 9th attempted murder, hospital admin noticed that Cullen was accessing a ton of patient records of patients he was not assigned to.
Yeah, that's creepy.
And he was being spotted in patients' rooms where he wasn't assigned to. So nurses get, like, you have room 301, right? But he was looking at patient records and going into rooms of patients he wasn't assigned to, which is not a normal thing.
Yeah, they'd see him in there and they're like, yo, what are you doing in here? This is
Bob's room.
It's like when you're waiting someone else's table. So you're like, stop talking to the
fucking
table.
Janet, stop trying to take my tips.
Yeah.
He was also requesting medicine that his patients had not been subscribed. So the patients that he was responsible for, he was going to, like, because I'm sure there's like a quote-unquote pharmacy that the nurses go to, hey, I need this for room 302.
Yeah, hospitals usually have a pharmacy.
Yeah.
Well, they always have a pharmacy.
Yeah, but he was going and asking for medication, and they were like, your patients don't need this. Why are you asking for this?
Yeah.
By this point, it seems he had killed so many and got away with it. He was getting sloppy and, like, careless. I wrote, kind of like this podcast, haha. Even though we're not, I just thought it was funny. But because, remember before he was stealing it, now he's like, hey, yo, Tony, I need some of that hot meds. And they're like, you don't. Like, he's getting so, like...
They're like, no, you don't.
Yeah, but he's, you know what I mean? He's, like, asking for it now instead of stealing it, because he's like, I'm not going to get caught. I might as well just... Yeah, but ask Tony for the medicine. In July 2003, after... Oh, is it weird that 2003 sounds like 2 years ago?
No,
it feels like 100.
No, it sounds like 2 years ago to me, too.
In July 2003, 2 years ago, after the 8 murders, the executive director of the New Jersey Poison Information Center called the Somerset Hospital and warned them that at least 4 of their reported suspicious overdoses were not an accident, which meant that a hospital employee was likely poisoning patients.
Well, finally, someone came out and said it.
Well, so all the deaths have to be reported. They don't, like deaths that they can't explain have to be reported, so those remain tracked, but not investigated. But finally, this center was like, hey, yo, look into this. But the hospital waited until October. So this is July. They waited until October, 2 whole months before contacting police. By then, in 2 fucking months, Cullen had killed 5 more victims and attempted to kill the 6th.
Wow.
And he was now starting to sexually abuse his victims.
Oh, that's odd. Mm-hmm. That just got thrown in there.
Yeah.
Before or after death, do you know?
After.
Oh, God. Well, either way is horrible, but I just was curious.
Yeah. State officials fined the hospital for failure to report non-fatal but serious insulin overdoses for the people he had attempted to kill. All of these mysterious overdoses had been administered by...
Mr. Cullen.
You guessed it. Cullen's final victim died in October 2003 of low blood sugar. Then after this last death, the hospital finally immediately called authorities to make them aware. They were like, okay, he's killed enough people. We'll finally call the police.
Thank you. I mean, it took you 100 million people too many, but thank you.
Yeah, I can't. I keep getting the urge to burp. So now police are finally looking at Cullen and his goddamn past.
Thank you.
On October 31st, 2003, Somerset Medical, so they still waited till the end of the month, they finally fired Cullen, and police kept him under watch for a few weeks while they continued to investigate. Fucking finally, on December 14th, 2003, Cullen was taken into police custody on 1 count of murder and 1 count of attempted murder.
Though, I kind of get that because they can only take you for what they're certain they can prove.
For now, yeah. So when questioned, he immediately admitted to the murder of Reverend Florian Gale and the attempted murder of Tin Kyushu Han, both patients at Somerset who died from overdoses.
Okay.
In April 2004, Cullen pleaded guilty to murdering 13 patients and attempting to kill 2 others.
Well, it was more than that, but okay.
Oh, yeah. I'll keep going. This is in New Jersey.
Okay.
He agreed to... so he was taken in and brought back to New Jersey for the first charges. Mm-hmm. He agreed to cooperate with police if the death penalty was taken off the table, and then he pleaded guilty to 3 additional murder charges. In November 2004, So he was now had to answer to Pennsylvania.
Oh, mine was in Pennsylvania. That's
yeah.
weird.
Well, yeah, and he's in both. Mm-hmm. Cullen pleaded guilty to 6